Um,
So,
Welcome everyone to the 3 o'clock, November 20th, um, 2025 session of UCGIS Week. We're excited to be in the GIS Tools Showcase session. Um, First up, we have John Jablonski from UC Santa Barbara, who's going to be talking about the work that he's doing with the UCSB rAtlas. We are still waiting to confirm if our second presenter in this session will be able to join us. So we'll see how that goes. But there will definitely be time for questions. Without any further ado, I will pass it over to John.
cool. Thanks, Susan. Hi, everybody. Is everybody having a great geography awareness week? Yay, geography awareness. Last night, I was at a downtown Santa Barbara venue. I'm going to share my screen here. Everybody see me? Great.
Looks good.
Last night, I saw a great local bicycle data presentation from one of our geography professors here on campus, except that was an off-campus session, which was really well attended by the community, primarily the bicycling community. I recognized a lot of people from the local bike trails. Today, I'll be talking for about 15 minutes or so about a project that we here at UCSB, including Christy Liu, who I see on the call, and is one of the organizers of this UC-wide GIS week. She's been an active participant in this, and we call this our rAtlas of campus, or the rAtlas, we call it colloquially. So I will call it the rAtlas, and I got to click on the screen in the right place. Come on, screen. There we go. So we have been doing carpentries workshops here at UCSB since 2019. And the carpentry teaching paradigm is a very hands-on paradigm. So if I can kind of pretend like we're in a carpentry workshop for a minute here, how many of you, with a show of hands or any sort of reaction, have yes heard of software or data carpentry? Can I get a reaction there? Thumbs up, thumbs up. Someone says no, and which is totally okay. So the carpentry workshops are hands-on computational workshops. They're a lot about data science, and they're live coding. So the instructor is always typing their scripts out in real time, and that forces the instructor to go only as fast as they can type, with the assumption that that's how fast the students can type, because we really want the students to be typing along from scratch. They're pretty intensive. Some of the workshops are over 16 hours, so 2 full business days. We rarely do those these days. Typically, we're doing 2 or 3 or 4 2-hour sessions. Those are working really well. And each of those lessons are divided up into what we call episodes. So there's a whole vocabulary that goes along with carpentry, as well as a whole teaching style. So when we have red and green stickies, when we're teaching in purpose, when we're teaching in person, sorry, we literally have give everybody a red post-it note and a green post-it note, and say, if you're having problems, if you're not keeping up, give us a red sticky. And if you're doing good, or if we give the learners a little task, we tell them, when you're done, give us a green sticky. And that's really, really effective in the classroom for those of you who teach on a regular basis. Advance here a little bit. So in addition to those aspects of the carpentry program, they're almost always about open source, free and open source software tools like R and Python. That's not how carpentry started back in the 90s. Someone can tell me when it started exactly, but I think it was the 1990s. Um, and the other thing is we're continuously improving the way we integrate reproducibility and project management into these workshops. So we encourage people, when they're doing their own work, to use version control, and there's a version control workshop. as well as share their work and collaborate from the get-go. It's never too early to share your work. And then this whole project, this whole Atlas creation project, has been an example of what software developers often call eating your own dog food. So use the tools that you're teaching in your everyday work, and that will make your teaching more effective. And so we use carpentry's materials to teach carpentry skills, and we would like to get better with R. So this whole entire atlas has been about using R with local data to improve our own ability to use R in a geospatial environment. And so that's eating our own dog food. So I gave you a picture of a county animal services dog who's up for adoption. Apparently, Charlotte has been wandering from mansion to mansion in Montecito for the last few weeks, walking into people's mansions. And our next door neighbor, the rich people, are very confused about like there's this dog and it seems really unreactive because Charlotte is deaf. But anyways, we haven't been working on this project for 6 years, but we have been teaching carpentry workshops for 6 years. So in 2019, when we started teaching carpentry, I could not teach the geospatial R lesson. I'm an ArcGIS Esri user. I like graphical user interfaces. When I have to teach the introduction to the command shell, the introduction to Unix lesson, I tell the learners that I thought I gave up looking at a green screen with a blinking cursor back in 1995 when Windows 95 came out. And look at me now. I'm scripting on a day-to-day basis. Very few people on my team here at the UCSB library had any experience with version control or GitHub pages, but that's how the carpentry lessons are created. So we all had to skill up with version control and with publishing HTML with GitHub Actions, things like that. And I kept looking at that geospatial lesson, and it wasn't moving forward. It's written to take like 15 hours to teach Introduction to Raster and Vector Data for R, which is the name of the lesson, and it just was long, and it kept getting longer, and it was very confusing. So I had a goal of I want to teach this lesson, and I want to be good at teaching this lesson. Then when we all came back to the office after the quarantine, we really needed a team building, synchronous, let's get used to working with each other in the same room at the same time again project. So this was a project that we developed as a skills building exercise, essentially. 6 years later, several of us here at UCSB are maintainers of several carpentry lessons. The team is all proficient with the core carpentry's technologies. And at this point, we have a couple people who spend a lot of time with AI code assistants and arguing with the suggestions. One thing we've learned is I think most of you know that it's not a great idea to call a document like, my project, and then my project two, and then my project underscore final. And indeed, the AI, when AI writes code, because AI learned from crappy human programmers, that's what the AI names files. It doesn't have very good file naming suggestions when it's writing code for you. So we're spending a lot of time with that these days. And then this little map here on the screen, which is probably too tiny for you to see, is somebody took that canonical geospatial R lesson and turned it into geospatial R for urbanists. And as the Dutch will do, oh my gosh, hi, my entire screen just flashed. I don't know if you guys got that. Am I still with you?
We still have you.
Yep, we still
Okay.
have you.
I don't know what happened with flashing, but as the Dutch will do, and I admire them. I admire them greatly. They're doing a lot of bicycling stuff in their lesson. I can't imagine why my screen keeps doing that, but it's doing something weird. But hopefully we continue on. Was I finished with that slide? Oh, and I am still very much an ArcGIS Pro user, but I am using RStudio just about as much every day, or on a weekly basis, I would say. So I'm going to show you maps here in just a second that are part of the rAtlas. But how did we make as much progress as we did? I think it's been about 4 years, and like I said, this is a group effort of probably 6 people over that time range, and we dedicated weekly work sessions for a while, and that really kept us focused. And that was always on our calendar for anybody who wanted to join the team. We have on campus strong local data sources. So we have official campus data and our Cheadle Center for Biological and Ecosystems Restoration, CBER. They recently removed a golf course and turned it back into a coastal wetland and not a swamp. That's not a polite term. Wetland, coastal wetland in a brackish water area near campus. And so there's a lot of geospatial data available for that area. And we didn't attempt to break any new ground. I'm not doing any really fancy cartography or geospatial analysis here. We completely mimicked episode by episode each of the functions and each of the steps that the learners would be taking in the canonical carpentry lesson, but we swapped in local data. And it took us a while to identify those data sources and work out those workflows. So what we wound up doing was kind of doing everything twice. We have a whole bunch of episode scripts. There's 12 episodes, I think. But then we also have like 6 or 7 map scripts. So we decided after a while we actually needed to make the finished products and then deconstruct them into the lessons. That's kind of how the lessons work in the first place. But anyways, because we are enthusiasts of open science, we the overall strategy was to make this reproducible. So anybody can download this repo and take a look at it and regenerate the results. They can make their own maps on their own machines. The code works out of the box. All of the paths are relative. And so if you want to run the script all maps.r, all 12 maps will run. If you want to run the script all episodes.r, all episodes will run from start to finish. And that's keeping those things running straight through has been a good exercise for us. Everything is free and open source. All the materials and all the data are publicly accessible. And we're even using Planet data that we have permission to because it's a derivative small chunk of it, we have permission to use that, to reuse that, I should say. And then it's being local was important. When I'm teaching geospatial things to undergraduates, very often it seems that they have better learning outcomes. This is anecdotal, but they just seem to understand the material better if they can apply it to a landscape that they know. So here's one of our maps. This is map 8, I think, and this is 4 representations of 8-channel planet imagery. So it's 4 different band combinations. So like I said, we have this run all episodes script and this run all maps script. At the top of each of the scripts, we unload the libraries and remove all of the existing objects from memory so that at the beginning of each episode, we know that we're starting from scratch. And that's important in the classroom because sometimes there's a coffee break or sometimes you trade instructors in the classroom. So it's really important at the beginning of each episode that the environment gets cleared out. So we reproduced that in the Atlas. And then, like I said, we've been trying to incorporate open science and good project management techniques into our teaching. So we have gone ahead and ourselves tried to use a clear and consistent file structure. This repo itself, this slideshow, is available for you to take a look at. And I just realized that it wouldn't be a very good idea for me to share that with you all because that's the slideshow. It's not It's not the actual rAtlas itself. I just realized that I put the wrong link in there. But I can show you if there's time. I can show you that. I can show you what the repo actually looks like, and show you the folder structure of the repo. Now, again, I feel it's really important to use local data, and especially local data from our library collection whenever we're teaching. And so we are using library collections data. We're using stuff from ArcGIS Online that we've made publicly available, or I should say that my campus facilities person across campus has made available to the public. And then the Cheadle Center, they have made a lot of their information available on ArcGIS Online as well. And then one of the layers we're using, not on any of these three, but you'll see it in other maps. There's a Microsoft global footprint model, building footprint model, and we used the California version of that to make some building footprints for off-campus. Because why would I have the footprints of private market housing in my UCSB campus data? So that was for visualization purposes. So one goal of using this local data is it highlights the local resources that people around campus have been working really hard to make available. And again, when my learners are familiar with a landscape, it makes them more likely to be able to understand the difference of, for example, an NDVI in the water versus an NDVI outside the water. That's a vegetation index. That's how green is your landscape? What is the greenest month of the year? That's the point of this map. This one, this is the campus map. So this isn't actually from the rAtlas, but this is the rAtlas roads data. So what's next? I'm almost done here. I'm almost at my 20 minutes, 15 minutes. We're gonna make this so that that it exists as a web page. So we're gonna make this as Quarto, and I had always wanted to make these as PDFs so that they're nicely arranged on a page for printing. I'm a print kind of guy. And then I am actually the maintainer of the canonical introduction to raster and vector data. And so it's time for us to be editing that lesson to make it shorter. And then we want to repeat the entire rAtlas and QGIS so that we're using more than one technology to make the same output with the same data, but using different software. We're going to repeat the lesson 2 different times, one in ArcGIS Online and one in the open source QGIS. So that's us. That's the rAtlas. I think, do we have another presenter yet?
It does not look like we do.
Okay. Well,
Kaji, if you're
I can take
here,
questions, or I can show the repo of the rAtlas itself to show you how the project's organized.
why don't we take some questions? And if anyone is interested in seeing the repo, we can ask about
You
that.
betcha.
Thank you, John. A round of applause.
Silent applause. Silent
Um,
applause. Thanks. Appreciate it.
and feel free to put your questions in chat, or you're welcome to unmute yourself if you prefer
Yeah, I have a chat
verbal.
window here somewhere. Oh, thanks, Christy, for putting in the URL there to our carpentry program. And I didn't say that we're going to be testing out the carpentry's program itself. There are alpha lessons, beta lessons, and production lessons. So this Dutch urbanism lesson is a beta lesson right now, and we are going to be teaching it in January. So if you go to that website that Christy put in the chat, you can register for that. That's going to be an online workshop, and that's open to all. We really try and when we're doing a Zoom workshop, we try and open that up to people off campus.
While people are gathering their thoughts, John, I had a question.
Mhm.
I can see definitely the benefit of this for like personal professional development and education. Have you found it, or like how have you found it to be helpful with kind of your interactions with researchers on campus and the support you provide through the library, if at all?
Other than our skills development, not yet. Not any concrete interactions with the researchers yet. It was a good excuse to remind myself or refresh the relationship with the facilities GIS people, because I had an old version of our bike paths around campus, but in the however many years it was since I went and got myself a fresh copy, the person in charge of that had rearranged it into just a paths and roads layer, and then there's an attribute. This is a bike path. This is a street. This is a sidewalk. You can see there's even athletic fields on the map that's still on my screen. So it's really a data layer of impervious campus pavement is what this layer is. And then we can filter it to show just the bike lanes. So it was a good excuse to talk to him. And even though the data was sitting there for me to look at, I hadn't grokked the fact that now all the paths are in the same layer. You gotta filter out the roads and the sidewalks if you want bike paths. So that helped. That was one solid benefit. It was it forced us to take a look at our local data again. And I think Christy will attest that the bike paths are one of the questions that we get asked fairly regularly. It's like, hey, do you have a copy of the campus bike paths? And yeah, we do, but it was out of date. So now I got a fresh one, and we know where to go look for the current one. And the Even the faculty member last night at the GIS Week bicycle event was lamenting that our local bicycling transit organization has not updated the local bike lanes in a long time. So we depend on OpenStreetMap locally for bike lanes.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience for John? Again, you can put those in chat or um, unmute yourself. And for those of us who joined us a little bit later, we just heard from John Jablonski from UC Santa Barbara. We haven't heard back from our second presenter for the session, so it will probably be a short session today.
Yeah, and I think there is a one final 4 o'clock GIS presentation for this. Yeah,
That's exactly right. We have
that's
one
cool.
final session on international geographies from 4 to 5 p.m. with some really interesting sounding talks um, about many different aspects of GIS that
Yeah, well,
cross international boundaries.
I was traveling earlier this week, so I didn't start attending until yesterday, and I attended one thing yesterday and a couple things today. But were other people speaking very much about using Python or R, script generating maps as opposed to using online mapping tools or graphical mapping tools? Was it a hot topic? Was it an ignored topic? No
We'll say for
comments. Okay.
well, I will say for myself, I also was not able to attend many of the earlier sessions, but
Okay.
in one earlier today, Charlotte Smith, who I think is on this call, talked about is in the process of developing an spatial statistics class that is going to be taught using R. Charlotte, if you
Cool.
want to talk
I
about
am
that at
here.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and where are
Hi,
you at,
John.
Charlotte?
I'm at UC Berkeley School of Public Health.
Great.
So I'm happy to share my slides. I don't think you were at the talk, but I'm developing a spatial statistics with R course, and
Hmm.
I'm at the really early stage of development. So I took the opportunity of UC GIS Week to share
That's
the
great.
resources that I've found to, develop this course. There's some amazing resources. One of my favorites is also UC. There's faculty at UC Davis. Noli Brazil has a really nice course and he's posted his labs online. So
Nice.
the purpose of my talk, John, was to kind of share what I'm doing, share resources, and then
Hmm.
get some feedback on the course, which will be, hopefully offered in a year or so.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, somebody at the University of Minnesota did a bunch of lesson plans as a postdoc, and those are published on GitHub somewhere. I can dig those up. And then, and one thing I didn't mention in my how we started slide was before we took our instructor training in 2019, I hadn't touched R in 10 years. I took a spatial statistics course in 2009 as part of a Master's of Geography up at the University of Oregon. But our studio didn't even exist yet. So it was so long ago that I did not think I was going to encounter it again. But R as a language in climate science and in biology has really persisted, straight through my grad school days. And so, and around the Santa Barbara campus, the use of Stata and SPSS
Hmm.
has just
Hmm.
plummeted. We
Hmm.
don't even have a Stata site license anymore as of this fall. Now, if you still want to be using it, you have to pay your own way.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
everybody's teaching with R or Python.
I'll put my email in the chat, John. Maybe we can follow up.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. And that was Pat Bartline, the climatologist, who taught me my spatial statistics up at Oregon. He's retired now, so I don't know how much his course materials would help, but it was really interesting to learn how to. Uh, he typically used weather stations as his example, and how do you interpret how do you interpolate what the temperature is anywhere when the weather stations are points, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And it was a really good course. I was really glad. I think it gave me a good background to pick this up again later on, 10 years later on.
Hmm.
Well, I don't want to belabor the point. How about Susan? We give the people their half hour back if there's no other questions.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if there's no other questions, we definitely need space for that. But otherwise, hopefully some of you will be able to join us at 4 for the final session of UCGIS Week 2025. And don't forget to check out the virtual gallery as well. And I think Maggie may have a link to put in chat for our feedback form as
Yeah,
well.
I'm going to put in the link to my slides on GitHub too. These are GitHub slides. Or these are made in R slides. It's another example of eating my own dog food.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, John, and thank you everyone for the active conversation. It was great to see you all. See you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.